Thanks so much. Look, yeah, so we're continue with the sessions, and in here we're going to be exploring the Azure Developer CLI. We're going to do like a deployment from our local to the clouds, right? We're going to be creating AI agents. We're going to be using Microsoft Foundry. It's interesting that Azure Developer CLI has just released an extension, as Luke mentioned, right? And we're going to go through like this session and talking in detail, more in details. So just introducing myself. So Marcel Medina, I'm a software developer, Azure specialist, being the MVP program like for a couple of years. Feel free to reach out to me like through the QR code and get in touch if you have any questions after like the session or just to for any sort of queries really if you come up like under from a software developer perspective in Azure cloud architecture as well. And today our agenda is simple because most of the things we're going to be talking about in here is about like what's the problem that we have and we're trying to solve. And we're going to see that currently there's a lot of excitement in people creating agents. And that sort of transition from your local to the clouds has a gap. So we're going to identify how big is that gap, and then later exploring the Azure Developer CLI, which is going to provide a solution for that. So from your developer experience, you will quickly realize that leveraging the tooling has lots of benefits for you to get going in provisioning your AI agents to Azure. We're going to be talking also about this developer inner loop, what it means, and how the Azure Developer CLI fits within that sort of experience and demo. All right, so we're going to go and jump and do like some cool demos in here. So you have built an AI agent locally. And now what? All right, so well, uh, there's always like this sort of challenge, especially with the whole excitements with like what's happening with agents, skills. Um, yeah, there's like a multitude of things happening. And then when you think about agents, how can I jump from my local to the clouds? That's like the big question in here. There's a big gap on what works on your laptop from what works on your laptop to what's going to work in the clouds. Starting with like provisioning the cloud infra. Uh, so as you're running things on your local environments, you're not really thinking about how is this going to be hosted on Azure. And that's a major concern, right? Because without the resources available in Azure, you're not going to be able to run any sort of solution. The other concern is that when you're using the modules, perhaps you're using something locally, maybe you're using something already in the clouds, but when you're talking about Azure and Microsoft Foundry, so how are you going to be deploying that in there? Right? Things is it can be a little bit challenging, especially if you're going to do like click ops from your like developer uh, knowledge or perspective, right? So getting access to particular services can take like some time. So in deploying some models may require like additional permissions that you don't necessarily have. When we're talking about uh, identity, and when you're querying against your agents or letting your agents to run any sort of jobs, um, you if you're running locally, they're going to have access perhaps to a set of tooling that is going to fulfill like particular needs. Like a classic example is that when an agent needs to request weather information, they're like weather MCP tools for that. Um, when you're running like on your local, things work smoothly because you're owning the host. But when you need to reuse, to use or integrate with any additional services, you need to think about how you're going to configure that. Are you going to use API keys? Are you going to use managed identities? Do you have like that full understanding of how it works? So that's like a major consideration here in terms of security. Not only that, you need to wire the plumbing, right? The connections. So from your web app that you have like perhaps a chat experience to your backend, having like the agents being hosted, perhaps you're running workflows, um, you need, or even like querying database, you need to think about, okay, how I'm going to connect the dots. And that has like considerations, right? Because if you're going to do this, any clients, you're going to wire, well, the bicep templates and getting like the pipelines available, right? The YAML pipelines. And but like connecting the biceps and the having the references right can take like, yeah, backs and forths, right? But also think about your binaries, how they are going to be consuming and connecting to the other services, like through configuration, right? So you need to think about that. And from a developer experience, as you are running on your local environments, you know like what's happening, right? So you have full control, like in terms of monitoring, debugging. If you're using Visual Studio Code, um, something that you don't have like in the clouds. So yeah, there's some challenge here. And when we look how we can resolve that, we look at Azure Developer CLI. This one, it's not a new uh, tool within the Azure space. It's been there like for a few years already. And if you're not familiar, like this is an open source tool that's going to accelerate your uh, development, like from transitioning your app from local to the cloud, to Azure. And because it's focused on developers, so you have these developer-friendly commands. They're going to map like those key stages in your workflow, right? Your software development lifecycle. What that means? Well, it means that as you're getting started, you're going to initialize your project, and that's going to bring some sort of resource that are going to connect. The CLI itself is smart enough to connect to your application, identify what sort of resource you might be using. And you do with when you're initializing that sort of workflow. You can also like do some sort of packaging if you're probably going to deploy this to different environments from dev, test, in production instances. So you can leverage like that capability where you're having like a package of your things and transition then across environments. And there's like a big part in here with the Azure CLI is that you can provision the resource from your local. So there's a specific command for that. The same with the deployment of the binaries that you create like for on your application. And the monitoring, right? Because AZD provides a way for you to debug and see logs that are occurring and happening like throughout your application when running it. Uh, that's an invitation for you to explore a little bit more. There are like uh, lots of templates in available on aks.ms/awesome-azd. And I'm not going to dive onto that. I'm suggesting you to watch Jason Taylor NDC session from 2024, where he really goes onto this deep dive. And because what I'm going to show in here is something more specific to agents, and that comes to that idea of AI, an AI extension. So the Azure Developer CLI allows us to create our own extensions. And now the product team has created this AI extension that fulfills our developer needs, where like you can transition from local to clouds and iterate on that. So the Azure, um, the AI agent extension provides you with a way for you to scaffold and create your infra. You can also do the deployments of those resources in provisioning, like onto Azure, with with the AZD up. So with those two main commands, you get things going straight away. Init and up, and then you get things to run. What comes after that is that you have the option to invoke your agents through a remote or local experience with the command agent invoke, and or run it like on your local environment, right? Because as soon as you do like the AZD up, things are provisioned on Azure. And then at that stage, things are going to be running in there. But you have this ability to bring like your local or run it on your local and get things uh, there, like for you to develop, validate, and test it. And together with the agent monitor command. So it's really the team, like the product team, has thought about like this developer experience and even provide like more methods, right, for you to check like the health or the status on Azure with agent show or in the classic commands to AZD down to clean up any sort of resources on Azure. Let me go here like with a demo just to clarify what I'm explaining. So just bear with me. We just bring my screen here. Stop. Cool. So you should be seeing here like my screen. And so for you to, if you're first time getting to hear about like Azure Developer CLI, there are different ways for you to install it, like on Windows, Linux, Mac. I'm using Windows, so I have run these commands, right? The AZD winget install Microsoft.azd, and that's it. As soon as you have that, then you have full control of, well, of what the AZD tool provides. What I'm gonna do in here is just to bring like few commands. So AZD, let's say, so there's like this command where you're gonna see that this is an extension, right? So as I run that, you're gonna see that there are some extensions available that I can use. The one I'm gonna be exploring, get this one, is the AI agents, right? Which is a preview. Um, so that's something new, really, and that aligns with this blog post. So if you look in here, this is very, well, it's new in here from March 23rd. So the team has just published this extension, and that's going to help lots of developers, right? Because it wasn't there before. And when we look in here at the extension itself, I'm gonna bring it. I'm gonna run like AZD AI agents, and you're gonna see that it's going to prompt me to with like a friendly CLI that I could perhaps in here just start like creating a template, right? but you can see the Foundry, like ship agents, Foundry from your terminal. I have like some sort of code created already, but what I'm gonna do in here is just to bring one of the repos. And this one I grabbed from Microsoft. I forked just to make sure that things wouldn't break. But this is what we have in there. I'm gonna share like the links. And what I'm gonna do is just simply clone it, and then we can explore like how it works. Okay, I'm gonna go and hit clone that one. And as I have that one, I'm gonna open uh, my Visual Studio Code. And as it opens, right, I have like another, oh, I have done this one previously. And there was the template that came up. This is a Python template. And what it does, if we look in here, so it's a Seattle hotel agent. So that's going to allow us to do like some sort of bookings of like hotels and rooms. And the code is very simple. You can dive onto it later, but what it's going to do is just going to get available hotels. It's going to find hotels based on check-in, check-out, and the price. And it's a very simple agent using the agent client with like a prompt in here that define that's a helpful travel assistant. Okay, and what I'm going to do in here, I'm going to just to initialize this project. Okay, so I think like the other one opened. So if I do a little bit more, oh yeah, I think that should be okay. And I'm going to run this the init. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do under like this project. This one actually, sorry, it should be under LS Seattle. Okay, cool. So that's in there. I'm going to do the init here. And now it's going to identify that I have, okay, what do you want to do? Start a new template or use the codes in my current directory? Well, I'm going to use what's in there. And straight away, it's bringing me a list of, okay, so we're going to have like this starter template. And there's a bunch of files and resources in here to get me going. Should I initialize? Yes. So you can see in here that things are being populated. I need to specify a name. Seattle Hotel Agent. I'm gonna put like demo, Global Azure 2026. Hopefully that goes well. Like different sort of type filters. It's an agent that's going to be responding through HTTP requests. We have two options using like the responses filter or invocations if you're going to do some sort of queries from CLI. I'm going to be using like a UI, so I'm going to be using HTTP on that. Deploy a new model from your catalog. Sure. Yeah, I have like my subscription here, and I'm going to be deploying onto like Australia East. It's going to be loading like the different AI models. Let's see if that one goes on. Mini, and that's going to happen. And then what I need to do is just that, AZD up. That's, if I do that, it can take like a few minutes. I'm not gonna do it right now. But what you can see is that, yeah, so you can see the files have been created. And this is the major like templates in here, like with the Azure.yaml that understands that I'm gonna be using a starter. Well, that's the name, but leveraging this particular extension here, like on the Azure Developer CLI, and saying that's, well, that's going to be a Dockerized instance with this reference to GPT-4.1 mini, right? And I'm going to go like from here to the running sample, really. So in here, I'm going to do, for example, I have AZD agents or AI agent show. So this is query because this one I have previously provisioned onto my Azure instance. And you're gonna see that this one is running, okay? So this is there like on Azure for me. What I could do, I could just come in here and say AZD AI agents, invoke. I can say, well, I'm gonna say something here. Let's see if the agent is going to reply that to me. And this is coming from my local going to the clouds. And that's happening right now. And just saying like, yeah, how can I assist today with hotels in Seattle? And I could just come in here, please like book a room of any budgets. This is my query because I know that there will be like different prompts. You would query me back again, but I'm going straight with the targets here. Okay, any budget, check in today, check out tomorrow, and then from here we should get like a feedback and showing all the hotels that I could just pick and choose, right? So that's going there. Would like me to book this? Yeah, but you get like the how things work, right? And the other thing, what I can do, I can run it locally. So with that, I can do it. For example, let me do it. Run. So this should get us going. That's working on my local host here. Anyways, 88. What I'm going to do is that I could copy this. You can see that there is a local thing in here. And I can simply, well, I think this one, I'm going to go actually. Let me use this one in here. City, Seattle. Cool. So I can do that. What I would be doing, I would disconnect things in here, like, but yeah. So you can see that things are starting to respond. Let's see if I can disconnect that. And hopefully Windows behave well. Anyways, let me see if I can do that. Cool. This one, apparently there was, oh yeah, no, there was like, I think like that's part of uh, the initialization, something here, but it got in there, right? So that got like my instance in here, like running. It just, I asked the question and I could see like things going, right? And the same I can do in here with the monitoring. This one is going to work with my agents there. Like, so I'm saying here, that's pinging the cloud one, okay? And I'm just sharing here. You should be able to see something happening here. Yeah, so you can see that you now can verify that the requests are coming and going. So that like allows us for like a smooth, really validation onto Azure. And you see that as a developer, you can visualize and see like what's going on. Right? So if you have like any particular calls or toolings that you're using MCP tools, you could verify what's really going on, which is pretty cool. So that allows you to come and explore Azure. Just like just to show what has been provisioned is that in here, like as I did previously, you you've seen containers, right? So there were like containers, containerized solution. But when it gets to Azure, I'm not used. Where is that? I have like a Foundry project, action group, container registry. The registry is here, but I don't have a host for that. So that's like Foundry is using hosted agents. So that's a new implementation. So you have two ways of doing that. You can take like full control by using the capability host, which is an option that it gives you full control. So you could like use container apps and having your instance in there. In my case, it automatically provisions that and using Microsoft resource. So I don't need to manage container apps in here. It's not in there at all. It's just managed by Microsoft. And that, well, has pros and cons, really. But for me, as a developer, coming here and getting to understand, like, wow, get it going, perfect. That it just works, right? So yeah, I think like just knowing that you see here like the models having provisioned, the agents, I could just come in here and chat to it, which is the same experience, right? And but yeah, you get like the understanding that you have things on clouds, things on your local, and you have like full control of that sort of journey, right? And yeah, I think like with that is really my session here, coming and sharing with you guys. And I guess with that,
Yeah, thank you for that. I've shared in the chat. I have shared the link to the Seattle Hotel Agent GitHub fork in your GitHub repo. Jason Taylor's NDC talk as well. I do recommend that. I've watched it myself in the past. Very, very good. Very exciting. I like the whole point of just being able to shift some of this inner loop stuff and just go, hey, not only are we going to work on the application code, but let's look at how we can deploy these agents very, very quickly straight into Foundry as well. So it makes it a hell of a lot easier, not only for yourself, but other people to pick this up and push it directly in. Like that was reasonably quick that you were able to do that. I'm a huge fan of AZD, but the AI
yeah,
extensions just, makes it a lot more
yeah,
worthwhile.
that's
So
my invitation. And that's it. Get to the REPL
there's
and
no
explore.
questions in chat, but before we finish here, how are people wanting to connect to you? Like, what do you have any links to any of your social media or anything for future reference?
Yes, I do. So what happens is that I have shared initially my QR code. Feel free to connect me to it. And yeah, you have like all the details in there.
Awesome. Thank you, Marcel. We'll get ready for our next session. Thank
Thank
you
you.
very much.
Yes.